Hello and welcome to I Know Dino. Keep up with the latest dinosaur discoveries and science with us. I'm Garrett.
And I'm Sabrina.
And today, in our 489th episode, we're talking all about titanosaurs. Not just the two of us, but we also have some titanosaur and general South American experts joining us.
Yes, Tito and Aline. If their names sound familiar, they've been on this show before. And they have a lot of really interesting stuff to tell us.
Especially about dinosaurs from Brazil.
Mm-hmm. There's also a new titanosaur and dinosaur tracks that tell us about a vibrant community in Alaska, as well as petroglyphs found next to dinosaur footprints in Brazil that tell us about how much earlier humans interacted with trace fossils. Plus, we have dinosaur of the day, Orkoraptor.
It's a pretty titanosaur and sauropod and South America filled episode, thanks to our guests. Took this opportunity to theme the episode around their expertise and interests. But before we get into all of that, as always, we'd like to thank some of our patrons. And this week, we'd like to thank 10 patrons, and they are Professor Herrerasaurus, Malleus, Travis, Paul M., Bean Man, Fernando, and his mom Maria, Cassidy, Katie, Evelyn and Frankie, and Tara.
Yes, thank you so much for being a Dino-It-All in our community.
And as a reminder, if you are a Dino-It-All and in our community, you can get this show ad-free. So if you're annoyed by ads, feel free to join our Patreon and you'll never hear them again. At least on our show.
All right, we're going to start off with our new dinosaur. That's the new titanosaur from Uruguay, Udelartitan celeste. We had a bit of a discussion as to how to pronounce this one because the genus name is derived from, as the authors put it, quote, Udelar, and that's a capital U and a capital R.
Yeah.
Acronym of the Universidad de la República plus Titan, end quote.
Yes. So in Spanish, they probably pronounce it like U de la R or U de la Ere, maybe. But when it gets turned into a Latinized name and then pronounced by English speakers like us, I have no idea how you're supposed to pronounce it because it's an initialism, basically, just letters abbreviating the name of a university and then turned into the name of an animal. It's very difficult.
So we're going with Udelartitan celeste. The species name celeste is Spanish for sky blue, and it's, quote, the nickname of Uruguayan teams in international sport competitions.
I like how much soccer or football locally names make their way into different dinosaur names. I think the last one might have been a Spanish dinosaur.
Oh, maybe we should start keeping track.
Yeah, all the dinosaurs named after soccer related things.
Or sports teams in general.
Yeah.
So this paper was published in Cretaceous Research by Matias Sota and others. Specifically, it's a saltosauroid titanosaur. That's a superfamily of titanosaurs. They include dinosaurs such as Saltosaurus and Nemegtosaurus.
That's the one that sometimes have osteoderms and tail clubs, right?
Yes, but they're not known for that. They're known for other features.
That's what they're known for to me.
Anyway, it's the second sauropod recognized in Uruguay. And that was carefully worded because it's not the only second sauropod that's been named. But I'll get into that. It's the second sauropod recognized. This is after a 2022 paper reported an Aeolosaurus vertebra from the Ascencio Formation. Udelartitan is the most complete titanosaur found. Fossils found include 60 tail vertebrae or bones.
So the most complete titanosaur found in Uruguay, right?
Yes, in Uruguay. They also found part of the shoulder, long bone fragments, parts of the leg, ankle bones, foot bones, and some associated eggshell fragments. And that's based on 2 specimens. There's over 80 species of titanosaurs in general known. Titanosaurs apparently arose from South America. Titanosaur fossils have been found in Uruguay since the beginning of the 1900s. Friedrich von Huene named 4 species in 1929, and Arctosaurus wichmannianus, Argyrosaurus superbus, Laplatosaurus arucanicus, and Titanosaurus australis, which later became Nikensaurus australis. These titanosaurs, though, were named all based on fragments, so not everyone agrees that these fossils should be assigned to those species. However, all of the fossils are known to belong to titanosaurs, and they're thought to come from different sized titanosaurs, and some are more robust than others. And then more fossils were described in 2022. That paper in 2022 had the same lead author as the one that named this dinosaur. Back then, there weren't enough fossils to name a species, but they did identify two types of titanosaurs, Aleosaurini and Lithostratia. More specifically, there was a vertebra from Aleosaurus species unknown, and fossils referred to an indeterminate Lithostratia. Aleosaurini had tails that may have strongly curved downward.
That's weird for a sauropod, or really any dinosaur.
I think that's more common with titanosaurs. Lithostratia, on the other hand, is not recognized by all scientists as a group. Many of them have been found with osteoderms, though it's not one of their distinguishing features. So again, this new species is Udelartitan celeste. It lived in the Late Cretaceous. It was found in the Cerro Formation. At least 2 individuals have been found. One's older than the other. The holotype, though, only includes 3 near-articulated vertebrae, so all those other bones are referred to the second specimen.
Like near-articulated vertebrae? So they found 3 vertebrae that were almost close together enough to be how it was when it was alive.
Yes. And I think they're taking a conservative approach here for naming the holotype. The fossils were found back in 2006.
So it took them a while to figure out which bones to pick, I guess,
Yeah.
and other details. I guess it makes sense. If you have 60 bones and they're from at least 2 individuals, then that makes it kind of tricky.
That 60 number refers to the tail bones alone.
Oh, geez.
So what happened was the sandstones in this formation eroded and led to bones, eggshells, and wood fragments being found, and they include a lot of titanosaur fossils. Udelartitan is estimated to be about 49 to 52 feet, or 15 to 16 meters long. It has unique features in the tail bones and the ankle and foot bones. The ankle bone, for example, is pyramidal, and other bones have various ridges and openings. In previous descriptions of these fossils, they thought that this dinosaur had osteoderms, but now they think instead of osteoderms, those are concretions, some hard, compact mass.
Oh, yeah. So that concretions don't have anything to do with a dinosaur. That's just like a geological feature, like a hard rock.
Yes.
That's a little disappointing. Osteoderms are a lot more exciting.
Well, it's better to know for sure.
That's true.
The eggshells that were found near the fossils were Sphaeorivum-like. Sphaeorivum eggshells have only been found in South America. The first ones were described from the Cerro Formation in Uruguay. These types of eggs are about almost 6 to almost 8 inches, or 15 to 20 centimeters in diameter, with a shell between 4 and 5.5 millimeters thick, and the eggshells are covered in dome-like nodes. This paper didn't say too much about the eggshells, but maybe we'll learn more in future papers. Some other animals that lived around the same time and place as this titanosaur include the crocodilomorph, Uruguay sucus, and indeterminate iguanodonts and theropods.
That sounds like a cool titanosaur.
It does. Yeah, all titanosaurs are pretty cool.
It's a very thick eggshell. You said it is basically 5 millimeters thick, which is almost a 1/4 inch thick. That's extremely thick.
Well, I was extrapolating there because Sphaeorivum eggshells are about that thick, and these eggshells were Sphaeorivum-like.
Yeah, that's nuts. I mean, even just any titanosaur had that thick of an eggshell.
Mm-hmm.
That's very impressive. It's amazing that air could permeate through that, because that had to happen for the embryo to develop inside properly. Oxygen has to make it in, and carbon dioxide has to make it out. Need some pretty good pores in an eggshell that thick.
Mm-hmm.
It is interesting because we don't hear that much about Uruguay in general. Usually we're talking about Argentina when it comes to the sauropods, the titanosaurs, and we're talking about Brazil with a lot of the other early Triassic things, and I guess also Cretaceous.
Sounds like there was a big gap between the early 1900s and now, in terms of fossils found in Uruguay, or at least with the titanosaurs.
That's true.
We have a couple of news items about trace fossils, starting with the dinosaur tracks found in Alaska. that showed that there was this vibrant dinosaur community happening in the Cretaceous up there. This was published in Geosciences by Anthony Fiorio and others, and it's open access. And they studied tracks from the Nanushuk Formation. This is from about 113 to 94 million years ago. That's roughly around the beginning of the Bering Land Bridge, which connected Asia and North America. It's also around the hottest part of the Cretaceous period, and it helps show the high latitude ecosystem on a warmer Earth. The team did fieldwork between 2015 and 2017, and they found about 75 fossil track sites. They also found a lot of trees and coprolites. Some of the tree trunks were up to 58 centimeters in diameter. That's almost 23 inches or almost 2 feet.
I'm more excited about the coprolites and the tracks.
Well, not many bones have been found in this formation, but a lot of dinosaur footprints are there. That includes small and large theropods, including birds. About 9% of the tracks that they studied were non-avian, mostly carnivorous two-legged dinosaurs. And then about 15% of the tracks were birds. And then about 59% of the tracks discovered are from two-legged herbivorous dinosaurs, and then 17% of the tracks are four-legged herbivorous dinosaurs.
So it sounds like they're mostly ornithopod tracks, like hadrosaurs.
There are a lot of two-legged tracks, but they said that they were not hadrosaurs.
So there could be other bipedal ornithischians, like little ceratopsian types or something.
It's possible.
It's always hard to tell from a track, I suppose.
There's some guesses here, or some theories. I guess I'll start with the ornithischian tracks, because most of them were. There were tracks with 3 short, wide toes and a large, rounded heel, and the widths of the tracks ranged from almost 6 inches to a little over 15 inches, or 15 to 39 centimeters, and the length was almost 5 inches to a little over 12 inches, or 12 to 31 centimeters. But they said specifically it's not a hadrosaur track because there's no bilobed heel.
Oh, okay. It could still be an ornithopod, though.
And some were from ceratopsians, ceratopsipes, with some short, rounded toes. Those are the four-legged tracks. So maybe the land bridge was used by neoceratopsians. There was another four-legged dinosaur with tracks that had more star-shaped and defined digits of its toes and fingers, with a 5-toed track that belonged to an ankylosaur.
Hey!
Yeah, that helps show that ankylosaurs were further north than we previously thought.
Hey. Farther north than titanosaurs.
Yes, but the titanosaurs were further south, I think.
Yeah, there were ankylosaurs all the way in Antarctica.
Good point. Well, maybe we haven't discovered all the titanosaurs yet.
Yeah.
As for the theropods, the non-avian ones were from medium to large-sized dinosaurs, and those tracks ranged from 16 to 27 centimeters long, or a little over 6 to almost 11 inches, and 13 to 22 centimeters wide, a little over 5 to almost 9 inches wide. So these dinosaurs are estimated to be about 13 feet or 4 meters long.
Pretty small.
Yeah. And then there's a bunch of bird tracks, and most of those were small with slender toe impressions. Most of them are about 4 centimeters or 1.5 inches long, and almost 5 centimeters or almost 2 inches wide. And they're tracks that are shorebird-like. The author said, quote, nearly half of extant shorebirds that reside in North America take advantage of the high seasonal productivity of the warm months to breed in the modern Arctic, end quote. So it could have been similar with these extinct birds. They went up to the Arctic in the warm months. At the time that all these dinosaurs were living, the area had floodplains and swamps and a lot of vegetation. And based on the wood samples, they're estimating that the area got about 70 inches or 178 centimeters of rain every year.
That's a lot of rain.
That is. And the temperatures were warmer than they are today.
I assume so, because they probably don't get a lot of rain on the north slope of Alaska these days.
True.
Probably mostly snow.
True. So this site helps with the framework for the greenhouse conditions of the Arctic in the Cretaceous.
Yeah, I guess it makes sense that they assume there'd be a lot of vegetation, not only because they found those fossilized trees, but also that's a lot of plant eaters in that area. Because as if you added up what you said, there were 17% herbivorous dinosaurs, 59% two-legged herbivorous dinosaurs. So just between those two, you're well over 2/3, actually over 3/4 herbivorous dinosaurs. And that's assuming that all of the theropods would have been carnivorous, which isn't really a safe assumption. Some of them might have been herbivorous or omnivorous too.
Maybe it was like the Great Valley.
They had to get all the way to the north slope of Alaska in land before time. I guess we don't know where they started, really.
Yeah, or where they ended.
Yeah.
We will talk about how archaeology and paleontology come together in a moment, but first, a quick break for our sponsors. And our last news item is pretty cool because it's paleontology and archaeology coming together at a site in Brazil with petroglyphs and dinosaur footprints. This was published in Scientific Reports, also open access, by Leonardo Troiano and others, including our interviewees, Tito and Aline. So the team looked at the relationship between petroglyphs and dinosaur footprints. Petroglyphs are rock carvings, and they found both these petroglyphs and footprints together at the Serra do Letreiro site. I don't know Portuguese that well, so I'm probably not pronouncing that correctly. But the author said it's, quote, tentatively translated here as Signpost Hill, end quote. That's in the Sousa Formation in Paraíba, Brazil. These dinosaur tracks that were there are from the early Cretaceous. They include theropod, sauropod, and iguanodontid tracks. And what's really interesting is that next to the tracks are the petroglyphs. It's hard to date the petroglyphs exactly. And obviously, they came way later after the dinosaur tracks. The team said that more research needs to be done. But in the area, there's some human burials from about 10,000 years BP. BP is before present, and that's a time scale used in archaeology and geology and other disciplines to specify when events occurred relative to the origin of practical radiocarbon dating. Now, the present time changes, so the standard practice is to use January 1st of 1950 as that commencement date. So anyway, these petroglyphs are around 10,000 years ago, give or take a few thousand years.
So extremely recent compared to the dinosaur tracks.
Yes. Practically yesterday.
Yeah, basically.
What's really cool about the site is that the petroglyphs and the dinosaur tracks clearly had a close-knit relationship. The author said, quote, it's unquestionable that the engravers acknowledged the footprints and intentionally executed the petroglyphs around them, establishing a symbolic connection between human graphic expression and the fossil record, end quote. There's some comparable associations between fossils and rock art in other parts of the world, like in Australia, there's some petroglyphs thought to be human reproductions of dinosaur footprints. In Poland, quote, a dinosaur footprint was identified at a site of possible occult gatherings, end quote. And in Utah in the US, there are coexisting petroglyphs and footprints. Sites include Poison Spider dinosaur tracks, Parawan Gap, and Zion National Park. The author said that the site in Brazil, quote, unequivocally indicates that human populations during the pre-colonial period interacted with and likely assimilated the fossil record, incorporating such record into their graphical expression, a cultural one, and consequently integrating it into its collective identity, end quote. So it seems really intentional that they created these petroglyphs near the footprints, and that suggests that they were meaningful.
That's so cool. And I had no idea that that existed elsewhere in the world already.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least, I mean, I guess it existed the whole time in all of these places, but that people had realized
Right.
that there are petroglyphs with footprints. It's also really fortunate that those footprints were exposed and managed to not be destroyed for thousands of years after people, before they were writing down their scientific discoveries, marked these footprints, and that both the petroglyph and the footprint survived for so long.
Yeah.
There are probably a lot of other dinosaur fossilized tracks that were around that got marked near or on and just have eroded, because usually they don't last thousands of years.
Good point. Yeah, a lot of weathering could get to it.
Yeah, we've talked lots of times about footprints that erode either on a seashore or just erode out of a rock face that might fall off, or are in an environment where there's a lot of freeze-thaw cycles in the winter and spring. And in those places, footprints can be destroyed in a matter of years or tens of years. Certainly, they don't last hundreds to thousands of years.
Yeah, I think it's cool when archaeology and paleontology can come together.
Mm-hmm.
The authors also said that it was plausible that the people who made the petroglyphs realized at least some of them came from a theropod, because they're similar to rhea footprints, and Rhea americana is the largest bird in Brazil. The site's also part of Dinosaur Valley and is near the urban center of Susa Municipality. And the most well-known trackway in Dinosaur Valley is known as Rhea's Trail, quote, even though the current population knows of the existence and morphology of dinosaurs, end quote. Yeah, we know about non-avian dinosaurs, but we still call it Rhea's Trail. So it's possible that the people who made these petroglyphs figured it was from a large bird, which is a theropod.
Oh, I see. So there's a dinosaur trackway there now that people call Rhea's Trail because the Rhea bird has similar footprints, even though we know that it's not a Rhea that made them.
Exactly.
Gotcha. That is an interesting connection.
Interestingly, the first mentions of dinosaur footprints from that area are from the early 20th century. But then research really got going in 1975 with Giuseppe Leonardi. And the petroglyphs were mentioned early on, but this study is the first to go in depth on them. The site has 3 large rock outcrops that total more than 15,000 square meters.
Oh, that's big.
Yeah, and a lot of petroglyphs have been found. There's 30 in one spot alone, and there's a lot of pecking marks too, which may mean that there used to be even more petroglyphs. The third outcrop has mostly sauropod tracks, and the petroglyphs there are different with a large motif with serpentine characteristics. Yeah, pretty interesting. These petroglyphs are on sandstone. Many were carved by scraping first and then refined with more pecking from a sharp instrument.
So the pecking marks by the tracks aren't pecking from dinosaurs, they're pecking from humans.
Yes.
Okay.
It's part of the petroglyph part, yeah. Quote, they resemble what is now interpreted as geometric forms, but their meaning and whether they were meant to constitute representational or figurative icons remains unknown, end quote. There's some engravings of rectangular grid structures, and then others resemble stars. And again, some of those petroglyphs are right next to the dinosaur tracks. There's no evidence that the creation of the petroglyphs resulted in damage to the footprints either. There's no clear reading direction of the petroglyphs, and they're concentrated in the first outcrop with the mostly theropod footprints. But it seems like they were made by multiple individuals because there are some different styles to them.
In the footprints or the petroglyphs?
In the petroglyphs.
Okay. I'm getting all mixed up now.
Oh.
Because
the focus is on the petroglyphs.
Gotcha. Because with footprints, a lot of times it's like, were they made by all one individual or multiple individuals? But you have to worry about that with the petroglyphs next to the footprints, too.
We don't usually talk about styles of footprints, though.
That's true. I guess we'd say like a different shape or size or something.
Maybe if you're trying to figure out if the dinosaur was dancing in a certain style. I don't know. Anyway, this site needs to be preserved because, like you were saying, Garrett, there's probably more sites like this, and maybe they don't exist anymore because of erosion. These slabs have some flaking of the layers, the onion skin effect, that's already damaging to the petroglyphs and the footprints. There's also some evidence of some recent animals coming by, and there's some litter, so reason to preserve it. It sounds like a really cool site.
Yeah, I saw a couple little pictures that kind of looked like plus marks that they put near some of the tracks. I'm not sure which exact ones they were, but it kind of looked like they were trying to figure out how big the steps were, or they were just like, it reminded me of putting like a star next to something, like, check this out.
Yeah.
Put a star next to the thing so everybody doesn't miss it. But it looked like a really faint mark, a really faint plus etched into the rock. But then, as you were saying, they're 10,000 years old and they're flaking off now. It makes you wonder what it looked like originally. It might have been a really deep, obvious mark.
Yeah.
But then all this time and erosion has happened. Now there's just a faint mark remaining. And that would definitely help me find some of these tracks because they're not always the most obvious.
Oh, if there's a human-made artifact next to it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If some 10,000-year-old, early paleontologist came through and just marked where all the footprints were for us, we can find them later and go like, oh yeah, there's the trackway. Thanks, guys. And in just a moment, we'll get into our interview with Tito and Aline, but we don't want to interrupt the middle of it. So now we're going to pause for one last sponsor break. And now on to our interview with Tito and Aline. But of course, when we got going talking about all of the amazing work they're doing, we didn't want to stop. So we have an extended version of this interview for our patrons. And so if you're a patron, you might want to check that out in your premium content feed. We are joined this week by Tito Aureliano, a paleontologist, geologist, science communicator, and postdoc at URCA University in Northeast Brazil, and Aline Ghilardi, a scientist, science communicator, and professor of paleontology at UFRN. Thank you both so much for joining us.
Thank you, guys.
It's great to be back here again.
Yes, definitely.
We're so excited to have you.
Yes, we've read multiple papers and like science communicating things you've done since the last time we spoke, and we know of a lot of things you've accomplished. And then like a little behind the scenes, you reviewed a book for us very graciously, which we really appreciate.
Yes, thank you.
So
helpful.
Yes, we love you guys and appreciate everything you do. So we're very excited to catch up on everything.
We love you too, guys, and we are very excited about the book coming out soon.
Thank
you.
Okay, so diving in, because there's a lot to talk about, unsurprisingly. Where should we start? Should we start with maybe your ichnology work, Aline?
Okay, let's do it.
I hear there's a lot of things that are going to be coming out soon. What are some things that we can expect?
Okay, so we have been exploring here the northeast of Brazil in search of new outcrops with dinosaur footprints there in Paraíba State. And we do have some surprises for next year. So there is a new ichnogenus coming from large type of titanosaur, a sauropod in generic, but probably a titanosaur. We also will have new descriptions of bite traces and dinosaur bones, revealing some interesting aspects about predatory behavior in abelisaurs. So that will be very interesting. So from footprints, from trackways to bite traces, we'll be traveling from Northeast Brazil. And the bite traces are from Southeast Brazil, from São Paulo state, from the very end of the Cretaceous. So very soon, those I hope those works will be published. And also we have been working with the description of additional ichnocytes here in North Brazil. So more of the old stuff, but new and beautifully preserved large trackways. So hope you guys enjoy the work on that soon.
Yes, I love ichnology. Like you were just saying, it spans so many things. You've got trackways, you've got bite marks, and then from there we can learn so much about the behavior of animals and just things that you don't get from just bones.
Exactly. In fact, about exactly what you were saying, one of those works, the one about the new ichnogenus regarding sauropod dinosaurs, it brings new insights into the evolution of the titanosaur gait in the early Cretaceous. So there were sauropods already walking like titanosaurs very early in the Cretaceous. And we hope to bring new insights into that. So sometimes we can verify way before looking into the bones, the evolution of some traits, some biomechanical traits, some anatomical traits through fossil traces. So we are bringing that into the next year. So let's see.
That's awesome. I'm impressed that you can tell a difference between sauropod tracks, because when I see them, they just look like a giant pothole.
Exactly. It's very rare indeed to find good preserved sauropod tracks with digit impressions, and usually they are just like round and gigantic. So we hit the spot there because we did find not a very long trail, short trail, but with well-preserved digit impressions and a very strange gait for the age it was found. So it was really good working with that.
That's so cool.
This work has been in the lead of my master's student, which is right now, she entered in her PhD. So it will be her first published work and with a very interesting theme. So I'm very proud of her.
That's so cool.
That's exciting.
Have you been her advisor throughout her whole period?
Yes, I feel like her academic mother already, like from the undergraduate She was working already with sauropods, but with paleoecological aspects of sauropods. Right now, she said she always wanted to work with tracks just like me. So how can I deny it? So she's now working with that.
That's so sweet.
We have now like an overloaded lab because people are moving all the way across the country to do PhD and masters with us. So
That's amazing.
we are on a maximum amount of students we can have.
How many students do you have?
Right now, 18. So
Oh.
it's a full lab, yes.
19 with the other guy that's coming.
Yeah, 19. Almost 20. Okay, let's do it approximately at 20.
And if you include the non-students, yeah, that's a lot of people.
Yeah, it is. We'll have like golden age of paleontology here in Northeast Brazil.
That's fantastic.
That is. Yes, and there are so many amazing fossils that have been found in Brazil and are continuing to be
Yes.
found in Brazil.
We had some really good work in the beginning of this year, some extraordinary discoveries in the late Triassic of South Brazil, some transitional, anatomically speaking, fossils of something already looking like a pterosaurus that you should take a look.
Now, where are you doing most of your field work these days?
Oh my gosh, all over. So from my part, most of my work has been done in the outback of Paraíba state, where is located what we call the Rio do Peixe Basin complex, where we do have many very early Cretaceous basins with thousands of dinosaur footprints well preserved.
We have been doing some excursions to the Potiguar Basin,
Also,
which is correlate to the Cancan beds.
Mm.
We might have Cancan beds version 2 here
Wow.
in Brazil. So yes, we are really excited.
yes.
And Potiguar means exactly in native language, eater of
Shrimp.
shrimps.
Shrimp eater.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Because the original populations that lived here prior to the arrival of the Europeans were called the eaters of shrimps. And this is the very state, Rio Grande do Norte and Ceará, are the states where this mysterious basin occurs.
Yes.
So there is a lot to be done in Cretaceous paleontology here.
And in particular, this basin, Potiguar Basin, is very interesting because it's the only Brazilian sedimentary basin where the sea really ingressed into the land, got into the land. So you have those marine deposits inland, pretty much like the Western Interior Seaway. You're in the middle of the semi-arid and you're collecting seashells. And this is very interesting. And right in the border of this, what was this marine incursion, there is this deltaic environment which has been speeding out dinosaur fossils during the last decades. Those dinosaurs, they haven't their own species yet. They are currently being investigated by different groups here in Brazil, but very soon we'll have a better picture of what was it like. Perhaps something very similar to the Can. Let's see.
That's cool.
Yeah, since this is a dinosaur podcast, just for you to have a notion,
Yeah.
like from 2020 until now, look how many groups of dinosaurs have been
Described from those deposits.
described from this unit with scrappy bones like
But-
Megaraptorans,
But you can really recognize those groups. Yeah.
Cocheradotonsaurids, Spinosaurids, Coelurosaurians,
Abelisaurs.
Titanosaurs, Abelisaurids,
Oh, yeah, the best.
and
Diplodocoids.
Rebbachisaurids.
Yes.
So this whole fauna
Yeah.
without proper formal taxa described. So they are there waiting for us to be excavated and described. So
Amazing.
this is what we expect for this whole decade ahead of us working here in this area.
That's awesome. And the Chem beds are in Madagascar, right?
No, in Morocco.
Oh, Morocco. Yeah.
Spinosaurus.
And,
Yes,
and
exactly.
pretty much a very similar environment. So a deltaic one with contact with the marine environment. And also here we do have those very large fishes that they do also find there at the can beds. So we expect something very similar.
That's cool.
I don't know, perhaps gigantic Spinosaurus too.
That would be amazing. So all these sites, they're part of the Brazilian outback?
Not exactly all of them. So we have been talking about sites all over Brazil, but those that we mentioned, the Potiguara Basin one, and this one, the Rio do Peixe Basin Complex, both are in the Brazilian outback. So why they do have so many fossils? Also because they're in the semi-arid. So we do have extensive rock outcrops here where we can find them. And why we didn't find them before? Because, well, this part of Brazil was less populated than the southernmost part of Brazil. So recently, in the last 3 decades, new universities have been built here. New paleontologists have been coming to here, such as me, and we are like starting a new era of exploring these areas.
Yeah. We always say that's like the most important thing, right? That there's a local paleontology community, because you can get some work done, going down to Antarctica or whatever once a year for a week or two. Or, if you're coming from, say, a big country like the US or the UK, going to wherever, and what do they call it? Like parachute paleontology. You go in, you collect something, you leave. But if you have somebody there who can just
understand the context, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're so much more available to do work there for months and months and months, and like you said, understand the context, so well, this is the best place to look, and you're also familiar with the people that live there, so when they find something, they know to come to you, and it's just it's so much better for
you can also grow
discoveries.
the community there, because you can get people who are local to the area interested and learning about all these things and helping.
You got over
create
a dozen
connections
students
with the local people, create bridges between the academic university and the universities, the scientists, and the local people, definitely.
Yes,
that was the secret of our colleagues there in the CAPA institution in the Pampas. The Triassic of Brazil, as we know right now, it stays in the Rio Grande do Sul side.
It's like from our state.
South Carolina of Brazil,
Exactly.
We have North Carolina, you have North Carolina, South Carolina. We have the same thing for Rio Grande. We live in the Rio Grande do Norte, which is mostly Cretaceous.
Yeah.
And the other guys live in the Triassic, basically, Permian and many other stages. But right now, they have an institution in the middle of the Pampas, in a small community, in a small town. And they live 24/7 over the outcrops. They exercise watching the outcrops. Yeah, I'm not joking.
Yes.
Rodrigo, our friend, they found Gnathovorax
while
he was hiking in the Pampas there. He saw something after rain. Yeah. It was simply
after lunch. He said, "Why not? Let's do it."
One of the most complete Aerosaurids. Just like that.
One of my favorite dinosaurs nowadays, definitely. And that's exactly what you guys said. With the community, they build a strong bond. They work together with the local people. So local farmers, when they do find something, they call them. They have like a friendship bound that helps and increase research investment there. So this is a fantastic example how you can do not like parachute research only, but do humane research connecting with people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I know that's a big part of what you've been working on too, is this distribution of paleontological knowledge and making people aware of colonialism and things like that.
Exactly. I've been working with that in the last decade or so, most in the last 5 years. And the whole Ubirajara thing that happened was into that. But the main thing is we were trying to understand how humane problems interfere in science. So science is not isolated in a vacuum. So it's influenced by society, the way the people think in an era or so. what we are trying to do is understand mostly how this can impact our knowledge about the past. So a few years ago, in 2021, I had the honor to publish the paper with a great group of colleagues led by Nusai Bahaja, which tried to quantificate how of our knowledge about the past was being hindered by those social problems, such as we investigated economical problems, economical issues. We investigated language issues. So, for example, the index of English proficiency between countries, how those things interfere in our knowledge about paleontology. And what we found in that work is that, well, most of the knowledge about fossils are being done in northern countries, especially in United States, Canada, and most of Western Europe. And interestingly, not most of the fossils were from that places, but many fossils, many of the analogy was being produced with fossils from southern areas, although most of the knowledge produced by far are from the northern hemisphere. There is like a blank of knowledge about the southern hemisphere regarding paleontology. And this is interfering in our understanding about the past.
Mm-hmm.
So the main lesson we can take home from that paper is that we need to understand that this is a problem and how we can solve that. And some of the discussions we developed in that paper was that one of the most impactful problems was the colonial history of the countries. So countries that were privileged by a colonial past, such as most of Western European countries, they concentrate lots of paleontological collections from abroad in their territories. And most of those fossils are nowadays out of their context. And we can understand, for example, that there are new species there, but what else about that? So how they connect with other species, with their local environment, with the local people, and understanding that this is maybe a problem also for the development of our current societies. How can we, as scientists, work to solve that? Because we also are not in a vacuum, right? We depend on our society for investment. We depend on our society for, well, anchoring our work. So that's mostly it.
Yeah. Yeah, it reminded me of a story I heard recently where someone was trying to study, I can't remember what group of dinosaurs, but it was from a specific area, like maybe it was Spinosaurs from Northern Africa or something. And in order to study them, it's like I got on a plane and I went to this country, and then I had to fly to this country, and then I had to fly across the world to this other country because they've been collected and then spread out. So even just from a practical standpoint of learning something about these animals, it's already difficult, and that's without even considering the fact that it makes it difficult to get new stuff, and it doesn't lead to a new generation of paleontologists in that area and the appreciation and the preservation in those places.
Exactly.
Yeah. So maybe circling back a little bit, because we were just talking about how many fossils are being found in Brazil, and it seems like it's more and more all the time. Tito, I know you've been working on histology, which is another favorite topic of mine, just what you can learn about the ages and even just the pictures that we see in the papers when people are doing histology. Can you tell us a little bit about your work there?
Yes. We have loads and loads and loads of bone to cut here. There is a long line.
All curators hate us.
Yeah. From pterosaurs to theropods, sauropods. I'm interested this month here with some pathological specimens I brought from Southeast Brazil by the end of last year. 3 years ago, we published a pathological titanosaur, which is a dwarf titanosaur called Ibirania. It's a new taxon, but we have found 3 specimens of Ibirania or more, right? Each one has a hobbit name.
Yeah, because they are dwarfs. Shouldn't be
Yeah.
rabbit-sized. Oh, so
They come from a specific, particularly interesting site, which is Santonian in age, which is a very interesting age if you're in South America. And it's the only age in Brazil where we found one of the only ones. Now we have more Megaraptorans.
Yeah.
So we have this dwarf titanosaurus in this level in São José do Rio Preto Formation. It's huge, the name, I know. And we just got new fossils from there, pathological fossils. And we'll be able to describe in detail the manifestation of bone infection that works like a cauliflower, And yeah, we have ribs, we have several appendicular elements and vertebrae with this pathology from different individuals, and I will be able to isolate them, photograph, and describe the tissue modification into possibly, I hope, I will be able to create categories for each kind of manifestation of osteomyelitis, the name of this disease, the bone infection. I already took some of those new bones to the electron microscope by the end of last year, and I must tell in advance we didn't find the parasites we found in the Iberian station.
Oh, yeah.
So this
I remember that.
this guy wasn't with parasites
It was something else.
for now.
Those
Yeah.
parasites were kind of disturbing.
Yes. Yes. I really want to put those in 3D in the synchrotron
Oh,
imaging,
yes.
we do have the data, but we don't have a computer that can process the data.
Oh.
So
Oh.
we are
Yes.
working on that.
And we must take a look at those.
How would you describe those parasites? Because I was having difficulty explaining it in words.
Okay, those are fusiforms. They are like bullet-shaped. They have a conservative shape, but they vary greatly in size depending on which area of the bone they were. They were like blood pools inside the bone medulla and the bone cortex. There are some spaces, some cavities. We found them too. But they have this fusiform shape all the way there. They look straight in most of the specimens, but some are curved. And we saw
Interesting,
microscopic structures,
Yeah.
larger structures like mouths and anus, and nothing like that.
It looks like really some unicellular organism. Apparently, because the preservation is not, it's good, but it's not that awesome. But we can see most of the forms, the larger units, let's say like that, are in the medullary cavity and in the outer cortex of the bone. They're smaller, but the animal was infested with that, and all the blood vessels, you can identify those little worms. So we are still investigating and trying to find
They are very
additional
intriguing
Mhm. Yes.
because they are too big to be unicellular.
Yeah, some of them we think they're too big to be unicellular, but we can see that through the preservation in that specimen. So we keep looking,
Yeah.
and
But
trying to find better specimens.
This is constantly in our radar,
Mhm.
Yeah.
in our dreams. We are already coming back.
in our
Or nightmares.
Parasitology, yeah.
Worms in the blood vessels is maybe like the most terrifying
no.
thing I can think of.
Yes.
But these new specimens you're looking at, it's not the same thing. They don't have these worms, you think, so far?
We did not cut the bones
Okay.
So far,
because we want to use them as a model for the development of osteomyelitis, because you have such a diversity at once
yeah, and the same
of this
bone,
pathology.
you have different stages of the
Yeah.
disease. So just like the cauliflower just popping out to the well-developed one, so totally gross.
What I did was taking two pieces. I was short in time because I was traveling.
Mhm.
I just had these two pieces in the electron microscope and spent the whole day watching the cavities there to see if I could find any of the other
Forms,
parasites
like
that we found in the other specimen, the golem specimen.
We call it golem, sorry guys.
But we found none.
Golem is a good name.
So the Ibrania has 3 specimens. There is Bilbo, there is Frodo, and there is Gollum. And there's might be an additional one we didn't name yet. But they are all dwarf titanosaurs. Let's say hobbit titanosaurs, some of the smallest titanosaurs. And it's interesting that they're being so, how do you say, infected by pathologies and parasites and so on. Poor things.
So was Golem named before or after you found out?
Of course, after.
It was Bilbo since the beginning, but when we found the terrible stuff and it became the dino zombie thing, we changed it to Gollum.
Poor thing.
Yeah. So I was thinking if you were naming like, dwarves, I wouldn't think Golem would be like one of the top 3, but it makes perfect sense now.
Yes.
Yeah.
And not only histology is big, but you're also looking at respiratory systems. And I know you've started to publish a few things on this, but it sounds like there's more in the works. If you're allowed to say.
A lot. Yes, quite a lot. Actually, it's non-stop work. There are many answers that could be answered now with the new specimens we have here in this area of the world, South America, because of the Triassic stuff we were talking about, and we now have the equipment to do that. We have CT scans and micro CTs available in several towns here. We have plenty of new taxa. So we have, in the recent years, our friends like Rodrigo that I mentioned, Leo, Severos, Flavio, several other guys. I will not list everyone. But the guys in South Brazil, the real South Brazil, just close to Uruguay. Yeah, really south. They have an excellent, new legacy of Cretaceous. And they uncovered a new fauna, which is equivalent to the players in Argentina. So in Brazil, we have Boreolestes.
Yeah, and maybe a few million years, probably a million year older.
Yeah, but these made Argentinians mad.
Guys, I love you.
Yeah, there is a historical dispute in sports. So Argentinians are mad.
Also, but,
and Triassic paleontology.
We have numbers, now we have dates. And it's probably...
So we have Boreolestes, which is our equivalent of Eoraptor, and it's much more complete. And we have more than one specimen. The creature is beautiful, amazing, so cute. Yes, it is.
I love how you love dinosaurs.
No, it's my friend. It's magical to touch the earliest thing
that you can call a dinosaur. Yeah,
no, the earliest dinosaur. And you had the pleasure to work with that with your colleagues.
And so well preserved, guys. So gosh.
Just imagine when we were kids and we were reading about Eoraptor discovery and so on. Imagine the pleasure of someday you grow up to work on some taxon that was so relevant to the evolution of the group, just like Eoraptor. This is Boreolestes. And Gnatovorax for the Herrerasaurus equivalent, which is even more complete, actually. And we did a microanatomical study of these 2 guys, and we found no evidence for invasive Ursex. So the invasive Ursex did not evolve so early in dinosaurs. So we went a little bit like 8 million years later in the next formation,
just a little bit,
in the Candelaria sequence.
Traveling in time.
Yeah. And we got this macrocolumn,
which is some of the sauropodomorphs, earliest sauropodomorph with long neck. Really, you can recognize a long neck.
It's another beautiful animal, like a 3-meter long necked, a small version of Plesiosaurus, very gracile. they found like a whole family of these
and they are so
animals embedded in the
beautifully
rock.
preserved. You can observe, for example, the hands and the feet, they contracted while the animal was drying before the final burial. So you can see the hands and the feet, they are contracted. And oh, this is so cute. The fossils are beautiful. And you can see them at the museum there in South Brazil.
That's cool.
So
Okay.
we also did micro-CT for this one, and another taxon that is in between, in a layer between, which is Pampadromius, which is another sauropodomorph. So we have a high resolution of the evolution of the anatomy of these animals. And what we saw is that the structure of the vertebrae was getting more vascularized to receive more blood and fatty tissues in Pampadromius in a fractal manner. The fractals inside the vertebrae were getting organized to stock blood and fatty tissues. And when you go to the macro column, you actually see the first evidence, the earliest evidence of invasion of air sacs. You see the air sacs invading the centra and the neural arc of the bone, and they form a new kind of structure that's pretty different from what we see in Jurassic and Cretaceous dinosaurs, theropods, and sauropods. So we were really excited. The earlier hypothesis is that it started with huge camerae and then went into small, delicate structures that look like honeycombs. So this Triassic evidence right now from our last papers suggests an interesting hypothesis. It started delicate. The tissue that first got pneumatized by air sacs, they inherited the structure from the blood, from the apneumatic bloody tissues that were inside there, the fractals I mentioned. And then opportunistically, these diverticula use these spaces to grow in a camelate-like tissues, like we see in titanosaurs later. So it started delicate. Into the Jurassic taxa, they became camerae, large camerae, and during the Cretaceous, it diversified in some groups into delicate camelates. So the whole hypothesis went upside down. This is why we are excited.
And don't you love when that happens?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's the best.
Yes.
So that's why looking at Triassic dinosaurs has been some of our most exciting things right now.
Yeah.
I wanted to.
But what we can do is talk a little bit about our SciComm
Yes.
activities.
Yes.
Yeah, if we want to do that,
that's
for
what I
sure.
wanted to. Yeah.
So shortly, there is all this branch of academic stuff we're passionately working on. But there is also another branch, large branch, that we have been working passionately also, which is science communication. So we do, for those that didn't watch the earlier episode with our participation here, we do work with a YouTube channel in Portuguese, talking about paleontology and geology in general. But we also work with projects such as building a game about paleontology. We also have dino collectibles. We produced, for example, Carcharodontosaurus, Irritator, that you can find under the name of EV figures that were produced in collaboration with us. And books, and what else? Comics, what else, Tito? There are so many things that
I have tried everything possible
to communicate
paleontology
That's fantastic.
worldwide. So
yeah,
we have our game in.
we have a board game.
We have a board
not
game also.
only an electronic game.
The video game is an adaptation of this board game into this universe you created of time travel, adventure, and so on, which is mainly to tell about the world of the past Brazil, several layers of past Brazil, since the Ediacaran to the Quaternary. So in this game, which is our apex, in my opinion, because we talked about early life and we talk about Pleistocene, and we have over 250
more,
species.
much more.
Yes.
I draw them. I know.
Wow.
So you have many of them, and they have this. It's like a Pokemon with Zelda, with Metroid,
with Earthbound,
with Jurassic Park, and Earthbound. Yes,
for
and
those indie games.
Undertale.
So,
We finally released the full Steam version in last December.
you can find it on Steam under the name Dino Hazard. So
Yes.
come on, guys, play it and tell me what you think about it.
Amazing.
I promise it's very original. You should not just harm the animals. If you don't like shooting the animals, you can use baits and try to use non-violent approaches. So we wanted to be educational this too. And you're going to get an alternative ending depending on your
7
actions also.
alternative endings are available. So
Wow.
just do whatever you will in the game, and then you can achieve one of those parallel outcomes.
Nice.
And as Tito was telling about the game here, we try to use science fiction to talk about science, because it's a way you get, the general non-specialized people more prone to be involved with the topic. So the video game was inspired by the book. The book is also available in English under the same name. You can find the Dino Hazard all over. So the book has this Dino Hazard Read in Reality. The game is Dino Hazard Chronos Blackout. So all under this universe.
Comic series are not yet in English, but we have the translations ready. I'm waiting for our producer there to release it.
Yeah, so take a look and to know more about the Brazilian past. So you will not find T-Rex, Parasaurolophs, Triceratops, and mostly known Northern Hemisphere taxa. You'll get used to know Australoposeidon, Nactovorax, Pampadromeos, and other Brazilian dinosaurs and other prehistoric animals too.
Nice. Some good weirdos in there too. Like we like.
Of course, exactly. So prepare to be impressed.
So then for our listeners, if they want to learn more about you and your work, where can they go online?
Okay, they can find us on YouTube under the name Colecionadores de Ossos, in English, Bone Collectors. And you can find all the story around Dino Hazard, either the book, the comics, or the game. You can find all over under dinohazard.com, right?
.com, right? And if they want to know our research part of our works, they can go to dinolab.com.br.
All right.
So from there, you can get even the classes, and we give them the semester and the latest papers published and so on.
And
Awesome.
if we have like positions available for masters and PhD students, just keep an eye on our website.
Yeah, you need more students, I hear.
Yes.
Yay! Please come to Brazil.
Awesome.
Well, thank you so much. It was so wonderful to catch up with you both and hear about all the amazing work that you're doing.
No, guys, we thank you. Your work are inspiring, and we are really connected to SciComm and our most beloved dinosaurs. So thank you for inviting us again. And we love you guys.
We love you too.
And you have a pretty neat book coming up
Yes.
soon.
Excited about that.
Us too. Thank you. Thank you so much, Tito and Aline, for chatting with us. I feel like we always learn a lot, and I'm always impressed by how much the two of you are working on.
Oh, yeah. It's almost unbelievable. I
But-
believe it because we've talked to them.
Yes. But keep doing it because we like reading your papers. And now onto our dinosaur of the day, Orkoraptor, which was a request from Tyrant King via our Patreon and Discord. So thanks. We're shifting focus from sauropods to this Megaraptoran theropod that lived in the Late Cretaceous, but it lived in what's now southern Argentina in the Cerro Fortaleza Formation, so we're keeping it in South America.
Okay, yeah. Hopefully Tito and Aline aren't upset that we're doing Argentina. when they're Brazilian. There's a bit of a rivalry there, but
Well, I got to go with what the requests are, too.
That's true. Didn't have any Brazilian requests to come from this time.
No, not just at the moment. Maybe we'll get some now. The fossils found include parts of the skull, teeth, tailbones, ribs, and part of the shin bone. Originally, it was thought to be a Megaraptoran coelurosaur, but later Megaraptor finds found it to be a Megaraptoran. Now, as a Megaraptorid, it walked on 2 legs and had a long tail. And based on other Megaraptorans, it had a long, low skull, a gracile neck, slender hind limbs, a robust tail, and large, sharp claws on its hands.
Yep. That's why they're called Megaraptorans, because they had hand claws that looked like foot claws on raptors, and they mixed them up at first.
This one, Orkoraptor, was medium-sized. It was estimated to be about 20 feet or 6 meters long and weighed 1,100 pounds or 500 kilograms. It had specialized teeth that looked similar to dromaeosaurids and compsognathids. The teeth were unserrated on the front side, and then there was an H-shaped contour in cross-section. Orkoraptor was the first Megaraptorid found with teeth that were definitely associated with the skeletal fossils, and those fossils were found back in 2001. The type species is Orkoraptor burkei. It was named in 2008 by Fernando Novas, Martin Ezcurra, and Agustina Lecuona. And the genus name comes from the Ionican Orkor, which is the local name for the La Leona River near where the fossils were found. The species name is in honor of, quote, Coleman Burke, an American amateur geologist and paleontologist who loves Patagonia and kindly supported our explorations in Argentina, end quote. The Ionican are indigenous people from eastern Patagonia in South America. They were hunter-gatherers, though today most of them live in cities and towns. And the term Ionican comes from the Hispanicization of the name they gave themselves, which means people of the South. They're also known as the Tehuelches, which means brave people in Mapudungun, though it's possible that the word came from somewhere else. The Mapuche took over and greatly influenced the Tehuelche and vice versa. This is a very simplified explanation of what happened there, because we're focused on the dinosaurs. There are multiple groups, though, known as Tehuelche, with 6 languages that were part of it. The Ionican were also influenced by Welsh settlers and Spanish-speaking settlers. The Ionican language is pretty much now considered to be extinct, though. In the year 1900, about 5,000 people spoke Tehuelche, which again, there were 6 languages part of that, including the Ionican language. In 2019, the last person who spoke Tehuelche died, though there are still some Tehuelche people. As of the year 2000, there are 200 people. Dora Manchado was the last person to speak Tehuelche, and though she died in 2019, she documented the language, and there are people who are working on reviving it. So we get a little history of language to go with this dinosaur of the day. Orkoraptor is one of the southernmost carnivorous dinosaurs from what is now South America.
The most southernmost?
Yes.
Farthest south?
Farthest south, thank you. Other animals that lived around the same time and place include the titanosaurs Dreadnoughtus, the theropod Astrochirus, the ornithopod Talankauan, and turtles and crocodiles.
It's a good name, Orkoraptor.
Mm-hmm.
And our fun fact of the day is that today there are over 90 titanosaurs known, but there were less than 25 valid species at the turn of the last century, or as we like to say, in the year 2000.
Whoa, that's more titanosaurs than I realized, because I had said over 80, but also the number of new species that have been named in the last less than 25 years.
Yes, it has been an exponential increase, as some of the researchers have said. So yeah, you mentioned that there were 80 species. That was in the Udelartitan paper. I looked into that. The reference for that claim is a 2022 book, and it's a chapter by Jose Carballido and others, and that's in a Springer Earth System Science book. We didn't cover it at the time because it is heavy into phylogenetics, but maybe we should have because there are some interesting facts in it. So the book was published in April 2022, And I was thinking about adding up just the titanosaurs found since that date to see how close to 100 we've gotten, because they said over 80 at that point. But it's tricky because books take a long time to publish, and unlike papers, they don't tell you when the writing was finished and submitted to the editor. They just tell you when the book was published.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that book publishing can take a really long time, so maybe that over 80 species number is from 2019 or 2020. Probably 2021 at the very latest. Probably was not current to April 2022 because you have to have your finalized version in long before the book is physically published.
That's a good point. A lot of titanosaurs squeaked on by after that.
Yeah. So I couldn't tell exactly which 80 species they were referring to in their book, but since the book was published, even just going by that date, there are at least 13 more titanosaurs that have been found. There were 5 each in 2022 and 2023, and there have already been at least 3 named in 2024. So this year is off to a screaming start at about 1 a month.
Keep them coming.
Yeah, could be the year of the titanosaur.
Ooh, I like that.
I think earlier I was saying it was the year of the tyrannosaur with like nanotyrannus and stuff.
Oh, I forgot. There's so many big stories that have already come out.
There have been. So if you're keeping track, so we're probably very close to 100 titanosaurs, if not already having reached 100 titanosaurs. Obviously, some of them are more completely known than others. Some of them might not last, might not stand the test of time, but that's still a massive number of titanosaurs when we had less than 25 just 24 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Another way to put that is that over 2/3 of the titanosaurs that have ever been found were found in this century, just in those last 24 years. It's pretty remarkable.
That is.
And most of the sauropods, period, that have been found in the last few years were titanosaurs. I was looking through all the sauropods named recently, and the vast majority are titanosaurs.
Golden age of sauropods.
Yep. I think some of that has to do with people like Tito and Aline, who are exploring South America and new places and getting more into the rock and into different areas and finding these titanosaurs and other dinosaurs that have been missed for so long, because South America is really the place to be if you're looking for titanosaurs. In North America, we have the ornithopods and the ceratopsians and stuff running around and diversifying like crazy, but South America was like nothing but titanosaurs practically.
Mm-hmm.
At least with the large plant eaters.
Cool. Well, on that note, that wraps up this episode of I Know Dino. Thank you for listening. Stay tuned. Next week, we'll be covering more new dinosaurs. Can't guarantee they'll be titanosaurs, but they'll be dinosaurs.
They're not going to be titanosaurs.
Well, something might come up.
Oh, that's true.
If you enjoy listening to I Know Dino, we'd really appreciate a review, preferably 5 stars, on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to us.
Yeah, we had a recent review that said something like, the hosts don't know how to talk, which is a little harsh. So if you have something nicer to say, we'd appreciate it.
Thanks again, and until next time.
Good day.